Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with the real Nate Payo. The show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
Hello. Welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. Of course, I'm your host, Nate Payo. Today, I'm joined with an awesome friend of mine, Girls for Greatness host, Delia Perry. Delia runs a podcast called Girls for Greatness and also a blog. And it's all about inspiring you to rock a life empowered by your own greatness. So welcome to the show, Delia. How are you?
I'm great, Nate. Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be here with you. And I'm really glad that we were able to do this. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I always like to talk a little bit about how I met the guest on the show. And so Delia was a complete stranger to me up until maybe 2 or 3 months ago. I had started to figure out how to do a podcast. And along my journey, I discovered this Facebook group, which contained a bunch of podcasters. And the gal that hosts the Facebook group, Heather Perry, she was posting like once a week, like, hey, here's somebody that's really cool in the group, like connect with them. And you got posted. And I was like, hey, what's up? I was brand new to the group, didn't know anybody. I just jumped in. I said, hey, I want to connect with you. And we started talking in a little bit about what each other had going on. And then since then, we've kind of interacted a lot more through some other groups on a regular basis. And I'd say we've started developing a friendship, not just, hey, we're the same podcasters group, but that's how it's gone. It's amazing how when you just kind of start hanging out in places, trying to figure things out that you have interest in, like you start meeting other like-minded people that are doing the same thing. And like you develop friendships with people like clear across the country. You're on the other side of the United States for me. And it's amazing. How's that been for you?
Yeah, I agree, Nate. It's been awesome. I'm so glad that we were able to make that connection through Heather and through the Unconventional Leader group. And, like you said, like through now with some other groups, you introduced me to Carrie Schweer, who I think you've had on your show, right?
Yes, she's been on the show. Yes.
Yep. And I've had her on mine, and now I've connected with Mario, and it's just like this come full circle. And here we are now sitting down, able to talk. And it's just the power of networking, right? It's pretty amazing.
It does. It's all about I always tell people, it's not just about connecting with that one person that you're going to, have a connection with, but looking to see like, hey, who in my network would benefit from knowing this person, and who would this person benefit from knowing in my network? And when you can start making those introductions and helping each other solve problems and come up with solutions, and that's, I think, where the real power lies. Yeah,
for sure. I definitely agree.
Okay. So before we get kind of into what is Girls for Greatness and what you're about, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Are people lucky? What are your thoughts revolving around the word luck?
Luck. Oh gosh. I did not see this one coming. That's a good question. I tend to feel like we are the creators of our own luck. I don't want to say I don't believe in it, but yes, I think I guess I don't like the word luck. I prefer the word blessed. And I think because just in my own mind, I feel like a lot of times we're given things that maybe we don't deserve or don't expect, but we're granted those things anyway. But to say luck, I feel like we are more the creators of our own destiny, and that a lot of that has to do with how we choose to live, our habits, I guess just in terms of, I don't even like to think of it in terms of coincidence, but in almost like divine intervention, in the fact that we're able to interact with others and put in situations that, lead to benefit on our behalf or someone else's behalf. I guess in my mind, I look at it more as being people are blessed or people are creating their own destiny. Not so much luck.
That makes a lot of sense. Is like luck doesn't just happen. It's like you said, a circumstance of the habits and the actions you're taking, and being blessed is maybe the results of those efforts, whether it's directly or indirectly. We're blessed to have our families, our loved ones that come into our lives, but they also just didn't get there magically. They stuff led up to the way you met them and the way you interacted with them, and you put yourself in places where chances of success are likely to occur, and then good things usually tend to happen if you're looking for the good, and bad things tend to happen for the bad too. But I think if you have a positive outlook, you're going to remember the positive outcomes more than the negative ones.
Right Yeah, I think people that embrace luck or say like, oh, that person just got lucky, I mean, I guess I look at it in terms of that's just kind of a way of dismissing maybe someone's, I don't know, just blessing, from God or from however you want to look at it. There's something about that word luck that I don't particularly like. So, yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like wishful thinking, like the people that go, oh, somebody got lucky. They're almost like saying it with like a negative connotation, like, oh, they only got that because, luck fell on their shoulders, fell in their lap. But people don't realize the whole story that led up to that.
Yeah.
And the efforts that happened, that, you essentially are creating your own luck when you put yourself out there more to have favorable outcomes occur. So,
right.
Cool. So let's roll into Girls for Greatness. Like, what's your story like behind Girls for Greatness? Why did you decide to, why did you feel like compelled to just say, hey, I need to do this and show some people that they can be great?
Yeah. It was a lot of things. A lot of it, I think, as I'm finding out with a lot of my guests and those I've had on my show, is people's own backstory has a lot to do with why they're out there doing what they're doing. And for me, it's no different. I think I've struggled in the past with my own self-esteem, my own issues, and have done a lot of hard work in moving forward in my own life. And I think in the midst of all of that, have always felt compelled to be an inspiration, to be an encourager of others. And that's even stemming from, I think, a younger age in my school years. And so I've always kind of felt led in that direction, felt like those were gifts that I've been blessed with and wanted to share with others. And it was just figuring out a way for me to do that was going to be impactful. And I did originally think that it was going to be just a blog and I was going to write. And then I quickly realized that writing wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do solely. And so I had the idea of the podcast. And the reason why I kind of wanted to highlight the stories of other women and what they've overcome in order to get to where they're at and the good that they're putting back out into the world was to really create a space where women were going to be encouraged to look at their own lives and not let their own setbacks, their own things that they've had to overcome, hold them back from doing whatever it is they wanted to do or living the life that they really want to live. I mean, that's one of the things I talk a lot about is living your best life, however that looks for you, and realizing that they're worthy of that. Just because they have mistakes or have hangups or have issues that they've dealt with in their own life is not a reason to dismiss their own happiness or their own worthiness of living their life the best way they can.
Yeah, I think it's a very powerful name. Like Girls for Greatness just is like hey, we're going to like rock this together. We're going to go crush the world. We're going to like no holds barred, like a warrior spirit. And I
Yeah.
think you embody that too. But what's interesting, you talk about, you had self-esteem issues that led you to that.
Hmm.
And I don't know you from that. I know you from Girls for Greatness. So
Yeah.
my I guess perception of you is a powerful take charge woman. And so, if I met you along the street and I was talking to you, I'd be, man, that person's got it just together. There's no way that they've
Hmm.
had a thing go on in that life. But when you start showing your struggles that you've overcome and the challenges you face, like people go, hey, I relate to that. I've struggled with that too myself. And if somebody else is leading an example that says like, hey, I can overcome some self-doubt and some fears and put myself out there and essentially live the life that I'm destined to be living, like up to my full potential, then that's going to inspire other people to do the same too. And I think when you bring those people on, those guests that have those same similar stories, a different way of telling them, a different
Yeah.
set of circumstances, you never know who's going to relate to it and say, hey, look, that person really inspired me to change my life. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, Nate. I think one of the things that I've realized as I've gotten older, and another big reason behind this podcast was I was finding that there was a lot of people I knew who were just getting stuck in that I'm going to settle mentality. Like, this is my life. This is as good as it's going to get. My relationships are not that great, but, oh, well, this is where I'm at. And I wanted to really kind of challenge people to be like, if you're not happy with something, or if there's something that you're struggling with, then you owe it to yourself to figure that out and to move forward and to realize that this isn't where you have to be the rest of your life. I mean, there's still growth, there's still possibility, there's things that you can do, and ways that you can craft your life to live a better life, and it doesn't have to be as it is now. And I mean, I'm a big believer in the constant pursuit of bettering yourself and realizing that we're all on this journey, and it's not like one person has arrived and they've got it all figured out, but we're all learning together, we're all growing together. But it's having that mindset to do that I think a lot of people miss. And
mhm.
they just want to stay where they're at. And I think some people, maybe that's just in a way, just it's just ingrained, it's wired in them so deeply that they have to, it's a little bit more difficult for them to bring themselves out of it. But I wanted to create something that was going to hopefully shake that up in people.
Yeah, that's a great mindset to have. And you talked a bit about having, like, you felt like you had a gift, and that word has been on my mind a little bit lately. The word gift, and whether or not I like, not you personally, but as a person, as an
Mm-hmm.
individual, like, have you identified your gift to the world? And a lot of people haven't, and I would include myself as one of those people that hasn't identified what their real gift is. I think I'm evolving and exploring and figuring it out. But if you know what your gift is, or you don't try to find out your gift, a lot of times you can find it out because it doesn't appear naturally to you. Somebody could tell you like, hey, this is what you're really strong at. But like, let's say you chose to live a less ordinary life and just kind of, like you said, resign yourself to, this is the way things are. That's never going to change. It's just, that's as good as it's going to get. But if you have a gift that you're choosing not to share with the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk about the gift too, it's like you could reach 1 million people, or you could be, maybe you're just like really good at making 2 or 3 people within your close circle really, really happy and really make a difference in those lives. You're still making a huge impact. Doesn't matter the size of your audience, because if you just encourage 2 or 3 other people to live the better version of their lives, they're going to go out and impact others and lift everybody else up too. So this idea that your gift should be held within you, and you say, well, who am I to talk about my gift? Who am I to share the world with my gift? I'm just going to kind of resign myself to this is the way it is. I think when you start embracing your gift and wanting to share the world, it's not a selfish thing to do that you're like, look at me, I just want attention because I'm so gifted. Everybody needs to see my gift. It's more of like you're selfish for not sharing it with the world because you're saying, hey, my fears of what other people might think or say about my gift is holding me back from impacting somebody else. And what if like your gift changed the world because you influenced the right person the right way and you decided to say like, hey, I don't want to share it. I don't think somebody else needs to be improved by me. I think that's a huge negative. And that's why I think it's important for people like you to say, hey, I've got a gift. I'm embracing my gift. I'm sharing my gift. Let me show you some other people too that are along that journey. So a little bit long-winded statement on gifts, but it's just been on my mind a bit.
Yeah, I agree, Nate. I agree totally. I definitely think you hit the nail on the head, so to speak, with saying that, I think we are doing everyone a disservice when we kind of shrink. I like to look at it as shrinking and not sharing who we fully are, or what good we have to put out into the world. I think we shrink for a lot of reasons, but I think a big reason is just that fear of maybe sharing our authenticity, so to speak, and being afraid that maybe what we have to share won't be accepted or it isn't needed or whatever. But nothing could be further from the truth. So I totally agree.
When you were starting Girls for Greatness, like what was that journey like of stepping out and doing it? And when did you start realizing that you were actually making a difference and this was something you needed to pursue a little bit more aggressively?
It took a long time to get it off the ground. It did. I really drug my feet and really felt like, I want to have all the pieces in place and I want to know exactly what I'm supposed to do with podcasting. And it was really Heather Parody that really, I've always said this, really pushed me to just jump in. She was the one that was kind of behind me going, just do it. Like, would you just launch the thing and, you'll figure it out. And so, I eventually did. And, I didn't have everything, perfectly figured out. It took a while to get, a flow in terms of just, regular guests and making sure that, I had content. I did launch with quite a bit already recorded, which was really beneficial and helpful. That was a big tip that was given to me. And I really appreciated that because then I wasn't scrambling in the beginning, but of course, you learn as you go. And I feel like it's been a journey for sure, just like life. And I feel like I'm always learning right along with my guests. But I do feel like, it resonates with a lot of people. It's growing. It's not, huge number of podcasts yet, but that wasn't why I started it. That was never the reason behind, was to, have this massive following, so to speak. But I knew that if, one person took something from each show I did, was, it was worth it. And that was really why I wanted to do it. And, it's the little messages that I get from people like saying, I really appreciate what you're doing, or what you said really, resonated with me or meant a lot to me. And, those messages mean the world. I mean, that's really been a huge encouragement to me to keep things moving.
Yeah, I think it's important that you get those messages. And I always try to encourage people if you support, if you follow somebody's social media, or their podcast or the blog, let them know you're following and listening, because a lot of times, you've probably had this happen to you, is you don't know anybody's listening. You don't know anybody's watching. So you kind of get a little bit discouraged and you're thinking about giving up. And then you bump into somebody in public and they come up and say, hey, I've been watching what you're doing and it's super inspiring. And you're like, I didn't even know you were following along. I didn't know you were listening.
Yeah.
I didn't know you subscribed. I didn't know it. Has that happened to you before? And you're just shocked by it?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people, Nate, that are following, watching, listening that we don't really realize, just because they're not commenting or haven't written a review or aren't showing up as a subscriber. I think I've had that happen a lot. In fact, I have had it happen even where I've met people. I was at a work party for my husband for Christmas, and I had two women come up to me and be like, "I listen to your podcast every week." And I was like, "What? Like, you're not like, I've never seen your name pop up on a comment on a post or anything." And so I think that happens. I think, there's people just like, we always say we don't know who's really watching our posts on social media. Just because someone doesn't comment or doesn't like it, a lot of people see it, more than I think what we realize.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I think it's a testament too that the numbers don't matter. Like,
Yeah.
it's like if you get caught up in likes
For
and
sure.
subscribes, like you're going to produce a message that's geared towards likes and subscribes. But if you're given a message that's true from the heart and authentic, and you're an inspiration, like it really doesn't matter. Like you're making that difference where it matters, and that's with individual people, and trying to lift them up.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the things I think that Heather has been such a good example to me, and to us and that whole group, is that she's really about, I think, being authentic and keeping her message, and whoever it lands with, and, just being true to who she is and not worrying so much like that so many people see this or so many people subscribe to this or that. I mean, I feel like you've got to pour into the audience that you're given, and I think things grow from there.
Yeah. I love that there's an inspiring message encouraging for you people to live their best version of their lives. 'Cause I think, would you say that people get too caught up in big life altering changes to make a difference, or would you say that they're more likely to find success in improving their life, making small incremental changes?
I think small incremental for sure. I mean, I think there's things that happen to us that shake us up and, can really rock us on a big level, major life events that can obviously completely turn our lives around or turn our, direction of our life in a completely different way. But I do feel like it's small changes. It's everyday choices built up over time that make a difference. I'm a big believer in that, because it's hard to just, definitively say, I'm going to be this way or I'm going to do this and that's it. The next day you're a changed person, or you've, developed this new skill, or, whatever. I mean, it's definitely habits and choices, daily choices built up over time, I think, that make a big difference.
I think you're right there. It's a lot of times, I think for me, if I'll have like a big, like, hey, I'm going to do this like crazy life altering change. And then you like go out and you go, oh, this is a lot more work than I thought it would be. And then like it fizzles off. But if you're just making like a 2 millimeter shift of just like, hey, do something just slightly different, even if it's just driving home from work a different way, or walking around the block a little different way, the little changes, I think, spark some curiosity in our brains, which starts helping us notice other things, which kind of leads to another thing, and it steamrolls from there. You talked a little bit, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but you talk a little bit on your blog about some I guess what I would say, maybe you were going through life, had it all figured out, left for college, and then challenged with your self-esteem and some of your habits, which I think is probably written the struggle that helped you become and found Girls for Greatness. So what would be the things that you've taken away from those experiences, and maybe elaborate a little bit on what those experiences were?
Yeah. For me, I was really fortunate in the sense that, obviously I'm dating myself here, but I didn't grow up in the time where, there was the internet, the cell phones, all of that, the media. Like, I know a lot of kids are faced with, teens are faced with, and everything kind of is hitting everyone, I think, at a much younger age. But I was an athlete in high school and college, and um, I feel like my self-esteem was pretty intact when I got to college. It was kind of, I think, much in some ways the reverse of what a lot of kids are faced with today. I think a lot of kids struggle a lot earlier with a lot of self-esteem issues through high school or junior high or whatever. But for me, it was college, and just I had some experiences with a coach that I had that was just really um, detrimental. I think it was a lot of it dealt with my weight, um, and not that I was necessarily super overweight. It was just I was an athlete, and that was, being in shape and all of that was really, really important. And um, like we had weigh-ins, and we had, were put on programs that there was just a lot of comparison in my own mind that I was starting to do, and that really wreaked a lot of havoc on my own thoughts about myself and my own self-worth, which quite honestly I hadn't really ever dealt with on a huge level up until that point. And maybe I was just fortunate in that sense. I wasn't someone that compared myself a lot to my friends or whatnot. Just wasn't, I think at the time, how you looked or nutrition or weight wasn't so much a big issue maybe when I was in high school. But regardless, it was something I dealt with through college, and I carried it on after that, and it was really something I had to work through in my marriage, and in just my own thoughts about myself, and really realizing that I'm so much more than, a number on a scale, or how many workouts I get in a week, or, whatever, so that whole piece was just a mental shift that I had to learn to make over time, and do a lot of digging and hard work into realizing where a lot of my thought process was coming from. This idea of perfection, and having, to have myself look this way, and it was never enough, and constantly comparing and then measuring up and all of it. So yeah, I mean, I definitely learned those lessons along the way of what is really important. And I feel like having those experiences definitely have made it more, I've been more able to relate to others who are maybe in that same situation, but also understanding, I think, where a lot of women are coming from, in the sense that, we do compare ourselves a lot, and then being able to bring people back to the fact that, well, who you are as a human being, as a person, is really what's important. And you waste so much time when you're worried about all these other things that really, on the grand scheme of things, are not as important as we want to make them be. And let me say, I mean, I'm a big believer in health and fitness and all of that. I mean, that's still a big part of my life, but not letting that be the driving force or the thing in the forefront of my mind all of the time was a big shift for me.
I think
So.
there's an example there, is that even the people that may be like yourself, a college athlete, that most people will probably look at and say, hey, this person has it all figured out. In our minds, we don't think we have it figured out. So we think we're the only ones that just have it all messed up, and we don't know. But you start sharing that story of like, hey, I struggle with self-doubt and self-confidence and internal struggles. And then people look at you and say, oh, geez, if she's got it all figured out and she's struggling, and like, I'm struggling too. It's okay to have these struggles. It's okay to, we're not going to wallow in defeat of them and just let them ruin our lives. We go, hey, I'm overcoming, somebody else is overcoming. Everybody's story is a little bit different. Everybody's cross to bear is a little bit different. Some people's are easier than others, but I think just sharing that inspiration that we're all human. We all have struggles that we go through, and we're all trying to overcome them, helps others realize, especially if somebody that is in a little bit of a dark place and doesn't want to reach out and find some support. They say, hey, look, I'm the only one, so I'm just going to struggle in misery. Like, hey, you don't have to be that person that struggles in misery. You can embrace some change and learn to find avenues to get past it and let it become your hero's journey versus your, defeat.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, Nate. Yeah. I mean, we all have our issues. We all have things that we work through, struggle with. I mean, all the guests that I've had on my show have had their own share of setbacks and things that they've had to overcome. But I think a big piece of that puzzle, for me, and a big part of me being able to move forward, I think, was realizing that I had to own the parts of the story, the part that, the internal things that I took and replayed over and over in my mind, that I had to shift away from blame of, it was this person's fault or it was this circumstance, but it was, that's what I decided to glom onto in my own mind. And that's what wreaked the havoc. And so it was kind of like, it was an ownership piece in that I really had to figure out that, hey, I'm the one that's chose to, develop this mindset and replay these things over and over again. And I'm not making light of people who've been through, much worse, circumstances or situations. But I do believe that there's always that choice of, choosing to be a victim, so to speak, for the rest of our life, or choosing to move forward. And I think a lot of people get stuck there, and they have to realize that, that's a really important thing, to be able to move past and to own your own piece in it, and then to work to change and to move forward.
That's a great message to have. All right. So I have my next question for you.
Yeah.
How do you define the term all in on an idea or an outcome? What does that mean, going all in on something?
I think all in means you're fully present to whatever's going on, whatever you're trying to do, and that you are putting forth your best effort, whatever that is at the time, at the moment, in the day. You're bringing your best self, and I think your best self isn't really possible if you're not present. And I say that because it's been a huge struggle for me to understand the power of presence. And, I'm very much a person that's always on the go and is horrible, what do I want to say, habit of wanting to multitask all the time. So I've had to really get present to the fact that, I need to be present, and maybe just doing one thing at a time, focusing in the moment on that one thing is really a huge part in being all in.
I think you're right there. Being present has a lot of positive things that become of it. And too often, we're busy with our lives, or we're thinking what's next, or we're thinking about what happened, but we're just never hey, in the moment. And think about, there's probably a lot of times in your life, and at least in mine, where when you look at really, your most fondest memories, it's usually I was really present in that moment. I wasn't focused on what was happening in the near future, tomorrow. I was worried about some conversations I had with people in the past. I was just kind of engaged in the moment. So I love that that take on being present. Cool. So who are the people that you find that you liked having on your guest as your podcast guest? Who are the people you like working with the best?
I think just the people who are not afraid to be really, themselves, to be real, to be authentic, that are not afraid to say, hey, I struggled with this. I'm going to be really honest about it. But I also, have done the hard work of moving forward and wanting to put my own good out into the world in my own unique way. I mean, I just think people who can stand in who they are and be unapologetic about who they are are really, it's been fascinating for me and been something I've really learned from.
Yeah, that's one thing for sure, is the guests we have on our show, and you hear their stories,
right.
They inspire you to do a little bit better. You're like, man, I think a podcast, I get so much out of it, just meeting people, which is not I guess I maybe kind of thought I would get that out of it in the sense, but I didn't realize how powerful it would be. It just like how I like after a conversation's over, how amped up I am, how like motivated I am, and just kind of like reinforces this belief of like, hey, if they're out there making the best of their life, like who am I to not do the same? So awesome.
For sure.
Where can people find you if they want to get connected, they want to listen to the podcast, they want to read your blog, they want to contact you?
You can go to www.girlsforgreatness. That's number 4, not the word 4, but for greatness.com. And you can also find me on Instagram under Girls for Greatness or Facebook. Those are the big places.
So definitely go check out Delia. She's listed where to find her. It'll also be in the show notes. If you guys could subscribe to her podcast, give her a like, a listen, let her know that you found some value in it. That's always helpful that we're doing it. And it's important too because she's sharing some other people's stories too. And it's not easy to go out there and tell the world, hey, I struggle with something and overcome it. So every bit that you can support Delia, you're also supporting a world of other women and girls to be on their quest for greatness. So awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show, Delia.
Thanks so much, Nate. It was so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Yes, appreciate it.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.